And we're told now that we have video from the moment the plane crashed.
People here say that they could see bodies literally dropping from the skies.
It didn't look like anything. It looked like a massive nothing, but everything. I'm at a cockpit of MH17. There is no one here. We were effectively walking in an area where clearly there were deceased people. We were quite stunned as to what to do.
So how did you become involved in MH17?
I think I saw the ticker tape firstly on one of the news channels saying an airline had gone down somewhere over Ukraine. It got very busy very, very quickly. I think as soon as I saw that broadcast, we knew the plane was heading to Malaysia, so we thought, well, the likelihood is, and everyone takes Malaysia Airlines, backpackers, particularly Australian backpackers, that was a cheap route back to Australia. There's going to be Australian victims on this plane. So without a hesitation, I think I got my kit together and raced to Heathrow Airport.
Алло. Он не въебет больше. А где он? Да мы тоже на самолете. Там что, еще один раз самолет, что ли?
It was extraordinary. I think it was a lot different to what we were anticipating. It was not your standard conflict zone. There was all this burning, there were still flames, which I thought was unusual. I thought, what is this? It didn't look like anything. It looked like a massive nothing, but everything. And I think the first indication that it was actually part of MH17 was I started seeing a couple of teddy bears. And for all intents and purposes, they were new. You know, there was nothing wrong with them. They weren't damaged. They were soft toys, and they were just sitting there, which was unusual. And then once you got your headspace into that space, you suddenly realise, okay, actually, I can make out seats. It sounds weird, but all of a sudden you can make out rows. All of a sudden you can make out a cockpit amongst the mangled mass of steel and aluminium and materials and everything else.
Those in the cockpit were killed instantly. Others may have been conscious throughout the 90-second crash, but a lack of oxygen would have made them barely able to comprehend what was happening.
One of the first things I came across was a plastic sack of mail, which I looked at, and the first letters there were for Toowoomba. There were letters for Townsville, Toowoomba. I don't know why it was all Queensland, but there seemed to be a lot of Queensland letters in this sack. But it was the cockpit seat, I think, which was most distinctive, and I went up close to it, and there were, I guess, human remains there. And very much nearby was a passport, which I picked up. And I Googled the name in the passport because it looked official, and it was the co-pilot. It was the co-pilot's passport. It was at that stage I rang then a mate of mine who was in the AFP back in Canberra, and I said, mate, I'm here. I'm at a cockpit of MH17. There is no one here. There was one farmer. There's no one here. There's no media. There's no Russian rebels, Russian-backed rebels. There was nobody. What do I do? And they said, well, it's a crime scene. Just step away. And I'm like, you have no idea. There is everything here, and the rains are about to open up. It was about to pour with rain. It was a surreal scene, and we were just to be there by ourselves with the heavens about to open up and all this evidence going to be rained on and no one else around. We were quite stunned as to what to do.
Билет. Да, я тут по самолету с билетом на месте крушения. Гражданский заебашек. Давай, черный ящик. Вот, смотри.
We were effectively walking in an area where clearly there were deceased people in various forms. You know, these people were alive a few days earlier and presumably looking for a holiday or returning home or whatever else it was. And that is quite upsetting. But I guess having that evidentiary gathering role made us a bit more immune to that. We were there to do a job. It wasn't just to report on. I could see from a distance what we had to report on, but having this other request to document what we were seeing gave us a bit of purpose, I guess, for want of a better term.
So how long were you at the site?
We were there a few hours. I think it would have been within 2 hours that others started turning up, and then probably after that 2 hours, the militia troops started turning up. What I didn't want then was for them to ask to see my phone and see what else we had. So we left quite soon after, knowing that everything that we had recorded and documented in such finite detail would never be seen again because it didn't exist anymore by the time everyone turned up. So we beat a hasty retreat at that stage. I think one of the things that then hit home was, okay, not only is this now a war zone, but we are possibly in the territory of those who shot down this aircraft. And I think that story was starting to now unfold, particularly outside of that area. But there were clear indications that it was shot down by a battery, a missile firing system that had been brought into that region by the Russians. It was a rumour. It was a rumour when we first went there, and it was a rumour that we thought, well, let's have a look at this. It could have just been a plane crash. Let's have a look at the site. But then very quickly it became apparent that it was shot down. Who would have the kit and equipment to shoot down this plane, especially as now it was starting to emerge how high this plane was. It hadn't just taken off. It had been flying for a while, so it was at a height that would require some serious hardware to shoot down. So very clearly, suspicions moved quickly to Russia. There is an element of sorrow as well, though. You're reflecting on the fact that while you're doing that job, someone is reading your content somewhere in the world, online or whatever, who have a personal attachment. It's their loved one that you're reporting on. I know quite early on I was starting to get calls redirected and texts and emails, and they had these personal stories. Can you do this? Can you find that? Do you know what happened to this part or that person? And that's kind of hard because it's like, yeah, these are people. These are people who have loved ones and family who want to know that information, and you can't necessarily provide it.